In the rain, Claudio Chiappucci and Greg LeMond take 1 minute 22 seconds to claim top 5 positions overall. Hello again and welcome to Brussels. Well, I have to tell you this morning that rain is again in the air and there are a few more bits of pavé on the route today. Well, yesterday that great escape, as it transpires, was well taken by Claudio Chiappucci and Greg LeMond. Over dinner last night, the Gatorade team had a post-mortem. It turned out that Gianni Bugno and Laurent Fignon had no idea that those two important riders were in the breakaway. They'd wrongly assumed, because the Bernesto team and Miguel Indurain were not taking up the chase, that there was nobody in that break that would affect the overall situation in the race. As it transpired, of course, two of the race top favourites were there, Claudio Chiappucci and Greg LeMond. LeMond could be seen talking to Chiappucci, and they were making friends, at least for the day, because Roger Leger, the manager of LeMond's Z team, had absolute contact with Greg LeMond by way of a two-way radio system in his crash helmet. And LeMond was telling Chiappucci the time gap all the time, and they had everything to work for by the finish. Well, the Gatorade team don't have radios in their helmets, and that's an innovation, a recent one at that, and things might change there soon. Well, let's have a look now at the overall situation in the Tour de France this morning. Still the Frenchman, Pascal Lino in the lead. Steve Bauer up to second place now, 3 minutes 11 seconds back. Claudio Chiappucci up to third place, 3 minutes 34 seconds back. Richard Virenque down from second to fourth, and Greg LeMond up to fifth. Of the others, Gianni Bugno is now in 7th place, 5 minutes 6 seconds off the lead. Stephen Roche down to 8th, and Miguel Indurain is now 5 minutes 33 seconds back, and Greg LeMond and Chiappucci have built a nice lead over him, and that should prove interesting in Monday's time trial in Luxembourg. Yesterday, it was the sort of fun at the fair that the riders don't like, falling off on the slippery cobblestones of Belgium. And of all the riders who reported to hospital, I'm afraid to tell you this morning that Bruno Cornier, a teammate of Greg LeMond, is out of this race with a broken elbow. That's a blow to Greg LeMond. Now, there might be more for all we know, because the riders haven't finished signing on yet. We know, for example, that Falk Bowden had a problem with his hand as well. Now, during these long stages over the cobblestones, bicycle manufacturers are always searching to try and produce a bicycle that will reduce fatigue on the bad roads. Yesterday, Alex Zula, the first leader of this race on the open road, was riding one such bicycle. Here's Paul Sherwin now to explain.
If you've ever ridden a bicycle for long periods of time on rough roads, you must have experienced the kind of pain you get in the neck and shoulders. Well, that's due to the vibration coming up through the forks and into the neck. What this company have done is actually incorporated a form of suspension into the front end of the frame here. They've taken out the old ball bearings and replaced them with needle bearings set into nylon. Bicycle manufacturers nowadays try to take away any extra pain that the riders have to go through, because when you're racing for 6 or 7 hours, all you want to do is get on with the racing.
And here's the route today that takes us across into Holland. 196.5 kilometers, a succession of small hills coming towards the end. And the riders today will find out that Holland is a little bit undulating, to say the least. The rollout this morning and the news now reaching us that in fact there are a number of riders not starting this morning, all involved in the crash yesterday. So Cornier not the only one out. In fact, Gerrit de Vries is out, also with a broken bone in his leg, we understand. Eros Polli of Italy is out, and so too is Falk Bowden. So that crash has really done a lot of damage to the big teams. One man who caused a lot of damage of his own yesterday here, Claudio Chiappucci. He really is the gadfly of the Tour de France, and yesterday he took himself back almost 1 minute and 30 seconds. And at the first sprint, a surprise this, Mario Cipollini away on his own to take the 6 seconds time bonus, and the big sprint behind him was won by Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov ahead of Laurent Jalabert. But Jalabert now, by virtue of that third place, is the new wearer of the green jersey tonight, if all things stay equal. What I can tell you straight away is that Cipollini has also retired from the race today, and that seemed to be a show of defiance, that breakaway. He retired from the race straight after the sprint, or as he came up towards the feed rather, and he is fed up, he says, at not having a chance at showing you how fast he is in the bunch sprints. At the second sprint finish today, Franz Maassen was leading a breakaway group, and Nijdam was second, Rouet was third. In this breakaway group, significantly, was the yellow jersey of Pascal Lino at 2 minutes 15 seconds. And now, as we join the race here, 5 of those original 10 riders are still clear by just about 30 seconds on the field, but the field have chased and recalled Pascal Lino, so there is a chance, Paul, that they might get away now.
Well, they may well, because the break is not as dangerous as it was before having Pascal Lino in there. The leaders of the Tour de France wouldn't want to give him any more chance, and you can see this is one of the last little climbs in Belgium before we come into Holland. It doesn't actually count for the King of the Mountains competition, but as you can see, the riders are really having a hard time at the front. Got a good combination for this to succeed. We've got 2 riders from the Buckler team. Jelle Nijdam at the back here. At the front, trying to move away, is Franz Maassen. These riders really do want to try and win some stages. They're the team of the flat stage, and they've had no luck so far.
Now let's have a look at the main field and see what's going on. There's the world champion, Gianni Bugno. And I think the top 2 contenders, Indurain and Bugno, are paying a lot more attention to the race today. We've noted that they have been riding very near the front, and it was the Benesto team that chased down that breakaway till they recalled Pascal Lino, and then they turned off the pressure, and that little group has gone away again.
They've got to be very careful and watch each other, because moves like the one by Kia Pucci and Le Mans yesterday could really put their challenge to the Tour de France in jeopardy. They can't let riders like that take time so easily on the flat stages. It's a lot harder to take a minute's gap on the mountains. And there's Maassen going again. He knows it's a time when they're about to get caught by the main field. He jumps down the inside. Jelle Nijdam on the front just eases up, trying to let the other riders react. Per Pedersen went straight away, but he couldn't quite get Maassen's wheel as Maassen forces up this climb here. Good move by Maassen.
Frans Maassen, a very popular figure in Holland, former champion of Holland, and indeed the winner of Holland's only single-day classic, the Amstel Gold Race, and he won that well. Now he knows that it's a great tactic to try as the field come on and want to take a deep breath. If somebody sprints off the front, they tend to say, oh no, not again, and they ease up. And in fact, Per Pedersen has done well to persist because he's got Maassen's back wheel. Maassen will be happy with that. 2's better than 1 when you're trying to hold off the field in the Tour de France. And look at the crowd lining the roads today on the road of the Tour. Absolutely tremendous crowds here in Belgium. And Paul Sherman was saying to me earlier, just look at those crowds down there. This could be one of the most popular Tours de France, which is now, as I said earlier, a mini Tour of Europe. So Per Pedersen has latched on to the back of Frans Maassen. If he just gets his breath, he'll start to work with him. There he goes to take up the pacemaking. And the gap is being prized open again as we come down towards Maastricht for the special sprint.
Eric van der Aarden here from the front trying to jump away. I think he realises that Frans Maassen is in front, and he knows that they're going to get caught anyway.
So as we prepare now to enter Holland down on the border, Maassen has gone clear for the sprint, followed by Per Pedersen and Eric van der Aarden trying to take the 3rd place. The long line of riders in this year's Tour de France, they will not give up. This is a superb race this year. Bernard Hinault said this morning it's because there is no recognised leader of the race with the authority to control it. Well, for my money, I'm rather glad there isn't, because when you watch the Tour de France under these conditions, you see a race that will not lie down. They just keep on racing and racing. General freewheeling being done down in the field. The yellow jersey there of Pascal Lino. That was a cheeky move today when he went away in that group of 10 and at one stage had 2.5 minutes. A sign of relief, and this looks like it might be Henrik Redant from the Lotto team who's going clear of the field. And they have missed out the last 2 days with their big sprinter, Johan Museo. So now they're going to try again. And he's gone right up to Per Pedersen and Frans Maassen. Redant takes the express train through with a rider there from the Once team. And it could be Eddie Bouwmans who's come up too from the Panasonic squad.
These riders trying just after a little bit of an easing in the pace as we went through the sprint sign in Maastricht there. Or the sprint sign at the border. It's a special prize for the riders going across each frontier every day, and it's each frontier they cross, and it's an extremely good prize, so the riders don't want to let that go away.
So the field has generally come together Vyacheslav Yekimov now is taking the race on towards Maastricht. The riders are in Holland. We'll take a short break.
We're here in the much maligned city of Maastricht, 50 kilometres from Valkenburg and the end of today's stage. Now, I know European unity isn't everyone's idea of a perfect future, but if it involves adopting the Dutch approach to cycling, then it may not be such a bad idea. This is the rush hour in Maastricht, for the most part pedal-powered and pollution-free. With a population of 15 million and the same number of bikes, cyclists tend to enjoy right-of-way in Holland. There are 15,000 kilometres of bicycle paths around this small country. The government is expanding the network to encourage more people to ride to work. In fact, in many town centres, motor vehicles are being phased out altogether in favour of cyclists and pedestrians. It all sounds like bike heaven, but there are a couple of drawbacks. For one, the Dutch have the highest incidence of saddle sores per head of population anywhere in the world, and they also have one of the highest rates of bike theft. The government has responded by providing secure bike parks, where cycles are not only locked, they're looked after by attendants. Even so, bikes worth stealing have largely gone out of fashion. For commuting at least, most Dutch people ride battered and easily replaceable bone shakers instead. The result, ironically, is that in the world's leading cycle country, new bike sales are down by 40%. Still, for the chance to cycle safe from exhaust fumes and inconsiderate drivers, it seems a price worth paying. By the end of the decade, Maastricht, along with most other Dutch city centres, will be completely car-free, and anyone who's had to ride through a British town centre on a regular basis will appreciate the beauty of that. For now, though, back to the men who have the roads to themselves here in Holland, and Phil.
Well, thanks, Gary, and the riders now are really full of action today, because now we have Stephen Roche spearheading another attack here. Roche went clear soon after we came away from Maastricht, and indeed the 8 riders who went with Roche have now formed a bunch of 12 men out in front, and Roche is the best placed. He's won the last 2 climbs, would you believe, the Côte de Salverbos and the Côte de Lourberg, and he's now looking extremely aggressive indeed. This is Roche on the front of the line at the moment.
Roche has everything to gain from this move. In fact, the group of 12 just came back together, but the pressure of Roche on the climb here has exploded the group, and now there are just only 5 men in the front. Every time the race has gone uphill, Roche has been the man to set the pressure.
There's Gilles de Leon just coming on the back there, number 71.
Four riders coming together at the front now. Then that's Valerie Tibaldi, and it's also Rolf Yaman, the Swiss rider from the Arioste here in the red and yellow jersey there. Roche really has set a tempo on this climb, blowing the race apart. And it's 1 minute 17 to the main field at the moment, and news coming to me that the team doing the chasing there is the Z team of Greg LeMond.
I'm not surprised. Enormous crowd here in Holland, the biggest we've ever seen for any Tour de France coming into town. There's the Z team now, and they're trying desperately to reduce this attack by Stephen Roche, because for the second day running, a star of the Tour de France has taken the race and shaken it out and gone up front. Atle Volsvold leading the group up there. Well, just let's have a quick look at the statistics today. 188 riders on the start line. We've had 6 retirements during the race today. Cipollini and Ciandri, 2 Italian riders. And the average speed thus far, 44 kilometres an hour, and we're still well on course for a record Tour de France, because the average 41.768 at the moment. The leaders of the Tour de France in yellow today, Pascal Lino, the polka dot jersey of King of the Mountains, Richard Veronk with 80 points. The green jersey worn at the start by Johan Museo with 90 points, 1 point ahead of Laurent Jalabert. Well, that's been reversed at the moment, because Jalabert has picked up a couple of points on the course. It could be his tonight. Let's go back to the action here. A little bit of break-up in the picture. That's due to the trees on these narrow roads here down in Valkenburg. But this little group of 4 coming on the back, Gilles de Leon, trying to find his form a couple of years ago when he was the winner of the Tour of Lombardy Classic. But the man who will not come off the front, Paul, is Roche. He's just staying there.
Well, that's the best way for Stephen Roche to ride. I've ridden 1 or 2 team time trials with him, and he's got an exceptional quality. He can set a tempo all the way up a climb, comfortable enough to keep everybody together. He doesn't want to get rid of these two or three riders at the moment, because he'll want them on the fast downhill towards Valkenburg. But incredible pace he set. He's exploded the group. Look at the crowds here, though. It's a bit difficult as we go through the forest here. It's not quite as light as we would like it to be, but it's incredible pictures here. Roche, maybe he's going to be the Stephen Roche of many years ago.
Well, here we are, Paul, in the streets of Valkenburg now for the leaders of the Tour de France today. And we have 4 names on the front. Stephen Roche of Ireland on the Italian Carrera team, a team he's gone back to, and a team for whom he won the Tour de France in 1987. Gilles de Leon of the Swiss Helvetia team, but he's a Frenchman. Valery Tebaldi of the Italian Gatorade team, and Rolf Jerman, a Swiss rider on the Italian Ariostia team. 5 kilometers to go for the chase group, and the gap now is still hovering around that 1 minute to this group on the road. But let's go back to the men who are writing the headlines for tomorrow morning's papers, and in particular Stephen Roche. There's no time now to lose their rhythm. Stephen could be riding to a high place in the overall classification tonight, and inching his way closer to the yellow jersey. He rides a time trial very, very well. He's on good form. Here's the main field, and it looks as though the Z team at the moment have dropped away from the front now as other teams are coming up. Noticeably though, the Banesto team aren't riding at the front of this bunch yet, and I feel they should be, because they're the men who should be bringing Miguel Indurain back into this race. And the crowd here now in Valkenburg, one of the most beautiful towns in Holland, deep in the area of Limburg, the area they call Little Switzerland, and the reason for that is just around the corner now. The climb of the Kouberg, where the crowd was stopped going up it 2 hours before the race came because there was no room left. And look at this.
Tebaldi's got a problem there. He got picked up a little piece of tape from the road. It could have caught in his rear gear there. Very lucky that it didn't. He just managed to kick it away with his foot. 3 kilometers to go. It won't be very long before they start the climb of the Kouberg. And look at the crowds here. This is unbelievable.
The massive crowd as they make the turn now to start the ascent of the Kouberg is just round the corner here. Stephen Roche, who's won the last couple of climbs here since he joined this breakaway, the last 3 in fact, is now going to make it 4 in a row, but this will be the most important. If he can go over the top of this line first with a few yards in hand, then he can make a run for the line, and there's every chance then that he will take, well, not take the leader's yellow jersey, but every chance he'll win the stage if he can hold off Tebaldi. But he's allowed Tebaldi to move up on the inside, and I think that's a probable good move by Roche, as the crowd here now watch the Tour de France coming into deepest Holland, right on the borders of Germany. Tebaldi setting the rhythm, De Leon following, Roche concentrating, knows exactly where they are, but he's looking at the point on the road and just concentrating his rhythm and keeping an eye out, listening to for any possible attack that might come from Jerman, who's sitting just behind him on his back wheel.
And these riders know this climb quite intimately. They've all been up it in the Amstel Gold Race. They'll know where it gets hard. They'll know if they're going to attack, where they want to attack, just to get over the top. It's a very difficult false flat. You've really got to put the pressure on to accelerate. But again, as soon as it slows down, Roche goes to the front. Tebaldi coming alongside him. Tebaldi waiting for an opening to try and jump clear. Roche isn't worried about that. All he can think about is keeping the pressure on and getting over the top of this climb and getting to the finish, and let the clock start to tick over.
And there is the top, just at the top of our picture, as Roche again is going to try and take his 4th mountain prize of the day. He's going to pick up a few King of the Mountain points today, and I'm sure that'll be not a consolation prize, but by way of an extra bonus, because I'm quite certain that wasn't why he attacked. He attacked today because he knew these climbs are here, and he knew it was a good chance to take time over the race. When he went, the weather wasn't so good. They went into heavy rain, but right now they're into warm sunshine again as they go under the 2 kilometer banner. Stephen Roche is taking them over the top of the Kouberg. Surprisingly, nobody has attacked. They're going to leave it for the sprint, and that could be interesting because Stephen Roche won the world title in a sprint in 1987. I don't think Tebaldi can sprint. De Leon might be worthwhile looking at, and I don't think Jerman can either.
De Leon will probably be one of the faster riders in this group, but Tebaldi's always been a man who's led the sprint out in the past for riders like Fidanza on his own team, but Roche is a very clever rider. A 4-man group like this is always very difficult, always precarious. Nobody knows exactly what to do, but I think Roche really not thinking about the stage, which might be good for him because he'd be relaxed. All he's thinking about, there's Tebaldi making a move. Jerman has gone for the long one, 1.5 kilometers to go. Jerman has tried to surprise them, but there we've got
yeah, well, in fact, Paul, Jerman's gone. Roche is now struggling, but Tebaldi has not locked on to Rolf Jerman, and he's going to run away with the stage of the Tour. Stephen Roche wants time. He's given all of his strength to that commitment. He wasn't thinking of the stage win today. One can understand that, and Rolf Jerman, his interest has been the stage win. Time does not mean a lot, and Roche is going to go. He's waiting for the move, and look at that acceleration. Tebaldi hasn't got it, and Roche has gone after Yerman. He could well catch him by the line. Yerman is fully committed now as Roche closes down. There's still time into the last kilometre. Just over half a mile to go. Stephen Roche can take the stage as well. This would be a marvellous end for what has been a great day for the Irish. And Stephen Roche has got Yerman. He won't even look at him now. Yerman expected somebody to be on Roche's wheel. There was no one. Yerman now trying to take up the slack there, but he can't get it as De Leon chases them down as well. Stephen Roche now inside the last 500 metres to the line. Roche of Ireland. He's only won 2 stages of the Tour in his life. He's going now for a third, and the gaps are being held. Roche is hanging on in there, but watch Gilles De Leon. He's recovering. He's into the slipstream of Rolf Yerman. If he waits just a second, he might still catch Stephen Roche. This has been a superb day, and there goes De Leon now. He's taken his breath. I don't think anybody will stop Gilles De Leon winning this now. Chance for another breather as he comes up on the slipstream of Stephen Roche. Tebaldi is out of it, so too here is Rolf Yerman. But De Leon will take this stage now for France. What an incredible run for France in this year's Tour de France. But the hero today, beaten on the line he may be, but take note of the man in second place. Stephen Roche has done the ride today, and the clock will tell us how much damage he's done as it starts to count down now. As Herman Frieson starts the sprint now, it could in fact have been Brian Home that was starting the sprint there, the rider who was missing out in the big finish yesterday. But these are for the lesser places in the Tour de France. Girotto coming home on the right and just taking it on the line. Massimiliano Girotto taking it on the line. The rider he will have beaten there, Dmitry Konishev, and a bunch right behind, and the gap reduced dramatically towards the end. They'll give Roche about 1 minute and 4 seconds, I would think, on the main field. So here's the stage result, a win for Gilles De Leon of France. He's finally found his old form after a couple of blank seasons. Stephen Roche taking second place today. What a great ride. Valery Tebaldi was third. Rolf Yerman finishes fourth. The main field, they pull back time. They're coming in just on a minute behind. So another French victory and the first for De Leon in the Tour de France. Well, Pascal Lino in yellow. And in answer to Peter's question on behalf of Hounsfield School in London, yes, he does get to keep these yellow jerseys. In fact, he's got 5 of them now, so I suspect he'll also pass them on to his teammates. This is the overall situation tonight. Behind Lino, they're still lining up, but Stephen Roche is the man who has gained most today. He's moved up the overall classification, and for another day, Indurain and Bunyo have lost time to some top riders. But the story today is all about Stephen Roche, and Paul Sherwin is with him.
Still a long way to the mountains. It's becoming a very strange race. It seems to be so open, nobody wants to control.
Yes, it's, you know, all the rule books I've read, nothing compares to today and yesterday, you know.
But do you think the climbers will have difficulty because this race is being so hard and the weather's quite bad as well?
Definitely, like once the real hot days come and start hitting the hills, you know, it's going to be, the back door is going to be open, and guys going to get thrown out every few kilometres, you know. Even as it is, like there's, every time the road goes up, there's lads getting dropped, so.
A great operation today, Stephen, with a good time trial. It could even put you in yellow on Monday night.
Well, I know I'm a dreamer, but you don't have to exaggerate anyway. Like, I'm going very well, but take it day by day, you know.
Well, Stephen Roche back in the frame in a big way. 2 questions I think must be posed. Will his back hold out? And will he climb like he did when he won the Tour de France in 1987? Only time will tell. Today, I think all of Holland turned out along the route to Tour. They've estimated over the last 50 kilometres, in fact, 1 million people has watched the race. And in fact, the stragglers had a big problem getting into the finishing line. The police had to really struggle to close the way for them. So the Tour de France goes on tomorrow, and we will have a special 1-hour programme. In it, we'll have Alan Piper telling us about Tales of the Peloton. Remember, Alan is riding the race. Also, Gary Imlach will look at the crash that took place a year ago to Jalmolodin Abdu-Japarov. And Jalmolodin will tell us in his own words how that has affected him. It's competition day as well. We've had literally thousands of entries. Good luck to you all. And if you do want to ask us questions, don't forget you can dial us on this number, 071 631 4444. We've had our day in Belgium. We've had our day in Holland. Tomorrow we're off to Germany. See you there.